So why does someone become a paranormal investigator? It might not always be the reason that you think. Stick around and I'll tell you my story of what got me into the paranormal field. Hi, it's Mike with Undiscovered Origins. Today I thought I would bring to you a little of my backstory of kind of what got me into the paranormal field. Now, I hope that by doing this, that maybe it will inspire some other people to kind of tell me their story, maybe let me share some of that information. All too often nowadays, the paranormal field is just kind of this dark, weird place that I think that the average person don't want to go. You know, studies show that about 75% of people think that they have had some sort of paranormal experience, or they believe in the paranormal. However, if you talk to someone, they're like, oh, they kind of blow it off. However, me as an investigator, what I've noticed is people will blow it off until you kind of get to talking to them. And then they'll tell you their stories and they're like, hey, this one time I had this happen. So I'm hoping that maybe by telling you my backstory from a little more of a normal perspective, maybe it will inspire some people to send me their stories in, and I can share that out with you guys. You know, growing up, I didn't really have much of a paranormal upbringing. The one thing that I remember growing up is I lived in Northwest Florida in the late 80s, during the 1987, 88, around that time frame, Gulf breeze flap. It was a big paranormal or UFO sighting that was kind of occurring. And that was about the only experience that I had with it. My family and I witnessed some lights in the sky one night, and we actually called the authorities, and there was a big thing about that. But other than that, growing up, I really didn't have anything. Later on in my military career, I had met someone at one of my first duty stations and kind of got me into the X-Files and that sort of stuff. So I've always had kind of an interest in the alien stuff, but never really hauntings and along those lines. I think that it probably would have stayed that way had I not moved into this house and had any experiences. And that's what I want to, you know, from an average guy's perspective of kind of what happened to me that kind of made me go down this path. So I've got a couple stories that I'll take you into. I'll do another video about one of the bigger events that happened. I'm going to tell you the first one today of what happened to me that kind of really got my wheels to turning. You can also read about this on my blog. It was one of the first articles I did a couple years ago when I started up the website and kind of sit there for a while. Again, I'm an investigator with military paranormal investigations, and we stay really busy, and I didn't kind of want to pull away from that or anything, and I'm still not going to. However, I kind of had if you watch my first video, a different path that I kind of want to take from my personal perspective. Not to say that I don't enjoy the investigations and those sorts of things. Still going to do all of that. I want to take you down my perspective with it from my point of view. But so we moved into this house in about 2005, and it wasn't long after that we kind of had some weird things that were kind of going on. One of my kids it's this room here that's behind me. You might can see the door over here. It was a garage a long time ago, and before we bought the house, somebody converted it into a bedroom. That was our nursery when we moved in. I had two older kids, and we had a baby on the way, so we turned that into a nursery. Well, as my youngest son at the time then, I had four kids. My youngest son at the time then, as he was growing up, as he got a little older, and he kind of turned into a toddler, still in a crib, but he would stare off, the crib was off on one wall, and he would be turned facing the dead corner there's like a couple of little decorations there, but that's about it. And he'd be talking to, just carrying on a storm. And, you know, we don't think nothing about that. Kids do that. You know, they talk to themselves. They have imaginary friends. They kind of go along those lines. But he would always be talking, and he called this, whatever was going on, Mau Mau. And he kind of went on with that, and then it kind of went away. And it was probably, I'm going to say, early 2008. You know, I'm a prior military, and I always wore hats and things like that. That'll kind of come into play here in a minute. But I had came home one day from work and it was really dirty, so I went and got in the shower as soon as I came in. My kids were at their grandmother's house and were staying over there. It was just my wife and I in the house, and she was in the kitchen. She was fixing dinner, and I'm in the shower, and I could kind of hear the microwave slamming, the door, the cabinet doors going as she was getting dinner ready. And I get in the shower and I'm getting wet, and I start lathering up my hair. And as I'm scrubbing my head down with shampoo, I had this cold object that felt like it hit me in the back, and then I could hear it bounce in the bottom of the bathtub. Well, I'm kind of like, what is that? I've got shampoo all over my head. My eyes are burning. So I'm rinsing my head. And when I get done, there was a dime that was laying in the bottom of the bathtub. Now, okay, so it was there, so something happened. But I vividly remember this cold object that it was cold and kind of took me off guard as it hit me in the back, and then I heard the metallic object hit the bathtub. So kind of like, well, what is that, And the more I got to thinking about it, I thought that was just kind of really odd. Well, being prior military, I always wore my duty cap, and when I would come home, I would take my wallet, my keys, my pocket change, and I'd put them in my hat on my dresser, and then that's where it would stay the next day. And then when I would leave again, it'd all go back in my pockets. Well, I was really used to wearing a hat, so I thought, well, maybe at some point in time I'd worn a hat at work that day. Maybe I had some money I'd stuck in my hat or something, and it was fell out in my hair as I'm doing this. But again, if you read my blog post, I call it a Ted haircut. It's a typical enlisted dude, which was basically a high and tight. Hadn't been out of the military long. So I didn't have a lot of hair. It's not like the dime got stuck in my hair, but it just kind of really struck me off guard. Well, it was probably a couple weeks later. That might have been the end of 2007, beginning of 2008. A couple weeks later, my youngest son now was born, and which made kid number 4. And we had him in the little deal in the bathtub. It was those baby deals that sits in the bathtub, and you just got some water in it that you kind of wipe him off. It was a couple months after he was born. So my wife and I were in the bathroom, and we're both leaned over the tub with our arms over the tub, and we're kind of sitting there playing with him in the bathtub. And out of nowhere, we heard ting, ting, splash, tingling of this metal object hitting what sounded like the toilet. And to me, that was the experience that kind of something really odd is going on. I knew in my head that it was money falling into the toilet. Now there's a windowsill somewhat close by and the countertop that's within arm's reach of the toilet, but I don't see how money would have fallen off into the bathtub. And we just found that really odd, that this dime within a couple of months of each other had one in the bathtub and then another one that kind of fell in the toilet right there in the bathroom. So I started doing all kinds of research and trying to figure out stuff about money. And that's when I found out that dimes in particular is a common occurrence in the paranormal field. Manipulation of smaller coins and things like that. But as I'll go into in my next video, that's the instance I think that kind of brought me into it. I started doing more research. I started finding out more about it and started trying to figure out what was going on. It was really odd, but it still hadn't struck me yet that paranormal events occur, if I can put that in any other way. Again, my wheels were spinning. I'm like, how does this happen? Where does this go? But it really hadn't just kind of dawned on me yet. In my next video, I'm going to tell you the story that actually completely changed my perspective. And it's probably one of the creepiest things that I've had happen to me to this day. I've had some scarier events happen, but it's the one that really changed things for me. So I hope you enjoyed this one. Again, this is just a quick little blurb of the first event that I had that turned me into a paranormal investigator. And I hope that, again, that as I lead into some of this, it'll inspire some of you guys to turn in your stories to me. Again, don't forget to follow us, like us, subscribe us. You can find us on our website at undiscoveredorigins.com, and we're on all the social media platforms. Hopefully I'll have the podcast coming out here soon as well. So again, if you have any questions, comments, or concerns, please sure to let me know, and we'll see you guys next time.